The war room of the Republic Intelligence Division was a stark, steel-walled bunker deep beneath the capital city of New Halos. Holographic projectors cast an otherworldly glow, illuminating the faces of grim officers and agents as they pored over schematics, maps, and tactical reports. The room smelled faintly of ozone and recycled air, a constant reminder of the bunker's fortified isolation. At the head of the long metallic table stood Commander Elias Varos, a battle-hardened veteran with silver-streaked hair and eyes like flint. Agent Zara Kane leaned against the wall, her arms crossed over her slim, muscular frame. Her dark hair was tied back tightly, exposing sharp features marked by a thin scar that traced her jawline, a souvenir from a botched extraction in the early days of the war. Zara was one of the Republic's most elite operatives, known for her unwavering focus and an ability to slip into the most secure locations without a trace. Yet tonight, even she could feel the weight of what was to come. "Everyone, eyes front," Varos commanded, his voice gravelly from years of shouting over battlefields and briefing rooms. The murmur of conversation faded as every head turned toward the holographic display. It flickered to life, showcasing a three-dimensional model of the foregone technocracy's research station, a fortress nestled within the shifting plasma clouds of the Xeron Nebula. "This," Varos said, pointing to the glowing structure, "is our target, the heart of the technocracy's bioengineering program. It's where they develop the enhancements that give their soldiers the upper hand on every battlefield we've lost." His eyes met Zara's, and for a moment the room felt colder. Next to Varos stood Lieutenant Marcus Hale, Zara's partner on more than a few missions. He was taller, broad-shouldered, with cropped blonde hair and a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow. Hale was the muscle to Zara's finesse, a former ground soldier turned intelligence operative who brought a rare blend of tactical acumen and brute force. Zara exhaled, breaking the silence that followed Varos' statement. "What's the extraction plan once we have the data?" she asked, her voice steady but with an edge of impatience. She'd never been fond of long briefings. Varos's expression hardened. "There isn't one. Once you get what we need, you're on your own until we can arrange extraction. The nebula interferes with most comms. You'll have a narrow window to get a signal out." Zara exchanged a look with Hale. He arched an eyebrow, silently voicing the doubt she felt. No extraction plan was practically a death sentence if anything went wrong. "Don't worry, Commander," Hale interjected, smirking in a way that only half concealed his unease. "We've come back from worse, haven't we, Kane?" Zara didn't smile. Instead, she nodded, her mind already dissecting the mission. The research station's layout was a nightmare of corridors, reinforced bulkheads, and automated sentries. And worse, it was rumored that human experiments were conducted there, captured prisoners of war, dissidents, and deserters, used in ways no one dared to describe. "We have one asset on the inside," Varos continued, bringing up a small holographic portrait of a man with weary eyes and an unkempt beard. "Dr. Micah Wren, a Republic scientist captured during the fall of Veskra Prime. He's been coerced into working for the technocracy but remains loyal. He's agreed to help you gain access to their primary data core, but he won't be able to hold out for long once your presence is known." The room fell into a tense silence. The stakes were clear. This mission wasn't just about stealing data. It was about survival and the faint hope of turning the war around. "Understood," Zara finally said. She reached for the holotable's interface and zoomed in on the station's core. "What's their response time for intrusions?" "Fast," Varos replied. "You'll have less than an hour before they're on you with full force. Once you trigger the alarm, you'll be fighting not just their enhanced troops but potentially drones and automated turrets." Hale whistled low. "Sounds like a party." "Make no mistake, Lieutenant," Varos said, locking eyes with him. "If you're caught, there won't be any rescue team coming for you." Zara felt her pulse quicken, though she forced herself to appear composed. She had done missions with no promise of return before, but this time felt different. The war had changed the Republic. Its victories were fewer, its losses more devastating. And the technocracy, with its dark, advanced science, seemed to gain strength with every battle. Agent Kane, Varro said, softening his tone just slightly. This mission is critical. What we find could save thousands. Maybe turn the tide. She met his gaze and gave a sharp nod. We won't fail. Hale clapped her on the back as they left the room, his eyes betraying just a hint of worry. Just like old times, huh? Let's hope it doesn't end like those, Zara replied, turning her focus to the task ahead. As the blast doors sealed behind them and the hum of preparations enveloped the room, Zara and Hale knew that in the heart of the technocracy's stronghold, their resolve and humanity itself would face its greatest test yet. The Republic's stealth frigate, Shadow's Edge, hung at the edge of the Xeron Nebula, its matte black hull blending seamlessly with the surrounding void. Zara Kane adjusted the straps of her stealth suit, feeling the familiar pinch against her shoulders. The suit's polymer weave would protect her from most energy scanners, but it wouldn't matter if she was spotted outright. Lieutenant Marcus Hale sat across from her in the dimly lit cabin, checking the magazine of his plasma rifle. 2 minutes to drop. A disembodied voice crackled over the intercom. The pilot of the Shadow's Edge, a young lieutenant named Ortiz, sounded tense. It was no wonder. The mission's danger was palpable. Zara looked at Hale, his confident smirk gone, replaced by the hardened expression he wore during combat. His blue eyes met hers. "You ready for this?" he asked, breaking the heavy silence. "As ready as we'll ever be," Zara replied, triple-checking the data slice device strapped to her wrist, a compact piece of equipment designed to interface with enemy systems and download vast quantities of data. It was small, fragile, and their only hope for success. The frigate trembled as it navigated through an increasingly dense field of electrical storms that danced like trapped lightning between the purple and blue wisps of the nebula. The proximity sensors blared softly before Ortiz silenced them. "Zara, Hale, get to the airlock," Ortiz ordered. "I'm bringing us as close as I can, but you'll need to jetpack the last 200 meters. The two agents exchanged a look, stood up, and moved swiftly to the airlock, helmets in hand. Zara's heartbeat thrummed in her ears as she clamped on her helmet, the HUD lighting up with data. Hale did the same, giving her a thumbs up as the pressure in the chamber equalized with the emptiness outside. "Opening airlock," Ortiz announced. The hatch slid open, revealing the dizzying sight of the technocracy's research station silhouetted against the vibrant chaos of the nebula. The structure was angular and black, with a network of illuminated pathways like veins of pale fire. "On my mark," Zara whispered. 3, 2, 1, jump. They pushed off into the vacuum, their jetpacks flaring silently, propelling them forward. Zara's eyes stayed fixed on the service hatch they were targeting, a small, overlooked panel near the lower ventral wing of the station. Every second felt stretched, marked only by the slow, rhythmic beeping of her pulse monitor. The moment they reached the hatch, Zara activated the maglocks on her boots and hands, securing herself against the alloyed surface. Hale followed, keeping watch while she worked. Using a laser cutter, she carved an entry hole just big enough for them to slip through. The station's metal was cold to the touch, almost unfathomably dense. "We're in," she said as the thin plate clattered softly to the inside floor. She dropped into a cramped maintenance shaft, Hale landing next to her seconds later. The air was thick with a sterile scent of recycled atmosphere, laced with a metallic tang that hinted at the station's synthetic nature. "Welcome to the belly of the beast," Hale muttered, lifting his rifle as they advanced. Their HUDs marked the path to Sector 7, where Dr. Micah Wren awaited them. Navigating through the dim corridors, Zara felt every muscle in her body tense, ready to react at the slightest sound. The station hummed with an unsettling, mechanical thrum that seemed to pulse through her chest. They slipped past security nodes, their suits built-in disruptors emitting low-frequency bursts that temporarily short-circuited surveillance feeds. At one checkpoint, a pair of drones hovered past, their sensor-laden appendages gleaming in the low light. Zara and Hale flattened themselves against the wall, barely breathing until the drones disappeared down the corridor. "Sector 7 is just ahead," Hale whispered, eyes scanning for threats. A sudden hiss and the sound of footsteps made them freeze. Two technocracy guards, tall and imposing in their black battle armor, rounded a corner. The glowing blue visors on their helmets shone like predatory eyes. Before they could react, Zara slid behind a console, signaling for Hale to follow. The guards paused for a moment, their visors sweeping the area, searching. Zara's hand tightened around the grip of her silenced pistol. The guards exchanged a brief, mechanical exchange in their native tongue before continuing on, boots clanking down the corridor. Zara exhaled, shoulders easing for the first time in what felt like hours. They moved forward step by careful step, until they reached a door marked with hazard symbols and the number 7. A muted voice from inside sent a shiver down her spine. "It's Wren," she said, relieved. Tapping her wrist, she sent a coded pulse that should alert him to their presence. The door slid open a crack, and a man with disheveled hair and haunted eyes peered out. Dr. Micah Wren's gaunt face brightened with recognition before it fell again, his expression weary. "Get in, quickly," he hissed, ushering them inside. As the door sealed behind them, Zara noted the sterile lab cluttered with data cores and devices. It was dimly lit, but the eerie green glow of containment chambers cast ominous shadows. Wren glanced at them, wiping a trembling hand across his brow. "You made it," he said, almost disbelieving. His voice cracked. "But you have no idea what they're doing here." Zara exchanged a look with Hale, the chill of uncertainty creeping up her spine. The mission had only just begun, but a sense of impending horror already tainted the air. The sterile hum of the lab filled the silence as Dr. Micah Wren's words hung in the air. Zara's eyes darted over the rows of terminals and containment chambers, noting with unease how some of them were marked with biohazard symbols and labels written in the technocracy's cryptic language. "Explain," Zara demanded, her voice steady but tinged with an edge. Hale moved to cover the entrance, his rifle ready, eyes flicking between the door and their surroundings. Wren's hands trembled as he moved to a console, tapping commands into the touchpad. His worn, pale face looked almost skeletal under the flickering green light. "The technocracy isn't just enhancing their soldiers with cybernetics and genetic modifications," he said, each word weighed down by the dread of revelation. "They're creating them out of us." The screen behind him lit up, displaying data files and grainy images. Zara's stomach turned as she processed the contents. Operating tables with unconscious humans, their bodies rigged with cables and tubes. Some were missing limbs or had mechanical augments fused to raw, exposed muscle. Others lay lifeless, their eyes vacant, surrounded by monitors displaying flat lines. "These are Republic citizens," Wren continued, his voice faltering. "Prisoners, refugees, people taken from the colonies. They're conducting biological experiments, altering them to create a new breed of soldiers. Obedient, enhanced, but hollow." Hale's jaw tightened, his expression hardening into a mask of controlled fury. "Lobotomized," he muttered, barely audible. "They're turning our people into living weapons." Zara felt an icy wave of nausea wash over her but pushed it down. There wasn't time to react emotionally. They needed to act. "Where's the main data storage?" she asked, eyes locking with Wren's. He hesitated, eyes darting toward a reinforced door at the back of the lab. "It's through there." "But it's guarded," he said, voice trembling with fear. "They know I'm on restricted access. You'll need to move fast once the alarm goes off." Zara nodded, reaching out to Wren. "Help us get in, and we'll get you out of here," she promised, noting the resignation in the scientist's eyes as he weighed the risk. Wren typed rapidly on the console, a series of beeps and clicks sounding as the door's locks disengaged. Hale stepped forward, positioning himself for what came next. "On your mark, Zara." She took a deep breath, nodding to both men. "Mark." The door slid open, revealing a wide, dimly lit chamber filled with rows of server stacks and a central terminal. The hum of machinery was louder here, underscoring the room's purpose as the beating heart of the technocracy's research. But it wasn't empty. At the far end, flanked by 2 technocracy soldiers with sleek, chrome exoskeletons, stood a figure in an officer's uniform, one that commanded instant dread. He was tall, pale, with eyes that gleamed with a cold, analytical light. the technocracy's chief research officer, Victor Rellon. Well, Rellon said, his tone smooth as he took a step forward. I see we have guests. The soldiers raised their weapons, the ominous whine of energy rifles charging filling the air. Take cover, Hale shouted, firing first. The lab erupted into chaos. Plasma bolts seared past Zara as she sprinted for the nearest cover, returning fire with quick, precise shots that ricocheted off metal surfaces. Ren crouched behind a console, hands over his head, eyes squeezed shut as if trying to block out the reality unfolding before him. Hale advanced, keeping the soldiers pinned while Zara skirted the edge of the room, weaving through server racks to reach the main terminal. The data slice device pulsed with a green glow as she connected it to the core. The seconds felt eternal as it began downloading, each percentage point a small victory. Come on, Zara muttered, feeling sweat drip down her brow despite the chill of the room. Rellon's voice cut through the cacophony. You think you can steal from us and leave? This station holds more than just data. It holds the future. One of the soldiers lunged toward Hale, metal limbs moving with mechanical precision. Hale sidestepped, pivoting to deliver a point-blank shot that sent the soldier crashing against the wall, sparks flying. The second soldier turned on Zara, advancing with deadly focus. Hale, she shouted, ducking as a bolt sizzled past her. Hale spun around, firing a shot that clipped the advancing soldier's leg, slowing its pursuit. The device beeped, signaling completion. Zara ripped it free and pocketed it, adrenaline surging. "In. Now," she yelled. The scientist scrambled toward her as Hale provided cover fire, each shot echoing like thunder in the enclosed space. Rellon's eyes narrowed as he raised a communicator, barking orders that sent alarms blaring throughout the station. Extraction route, Hale asked, reloading with swift efficiency. Ren pointed to an adjacent corridor. There's an emergency chute leading to the lower docking bay. It's your only shot. They bolted for the exit, the klaxons drowning out the sound of pursuit. Zara's mind raced as they ran, the truth she'd uncovered settling in like a stone in her gut. The Republic wasn't just losing a war. They were being harvested, reshaped into something monstrous. The mission was a success, but the battle for humanity's survival had only just begun. Zara, Hale, and Dr. Ren sprinted down the corridor, the sterile walls blurring as red emergency lights flashed around them. The high-pitched wail of the alarm was deafening, punctuated by the shouts of technocracy guards closing in from behind. Hale kept glancing over his shoulder, watching for the black-armored figures that would inevitably catch up. Keep moving, Zara shouted, heart hammering in her chest. The stolen data chip was secured in her chest pocket, a small, fragile piece of hope for the Republic. She pushed harder, legs burning as they turned a corner, and ran into a wide hall lined with floor-to-ceiling metal ribs. The rhythmic hum of automated defense turrets woke from dormant silence to a deadly whir. Turrets, Hale barked. Before they could react, bright blue beams sliced through the air, scorching the walls and floor. Hale rolled to the side, firing at the nearest turret with precision. His plasma bolts shattered its casing, sending shards of metal and sparking wires scattering. Ren was slower, tripping over his own feet as he tried to keep up. Zara grabbed him by the arm, hauling him upright just as a beam cut through where he'd been a moment before. They ducked into a maintenance alcove as Hale destroyed the second turret, sweat glistening on his brow. Those guards aren't far behind, Ren gasped, eyes wide and panicked. Which way to the emergency chute? Zara demanded, peering out to assess their path. Left at the end of this hall, Ren stammered, pointing with a shaking hand. Before they could move, the sound of metal feet thundered down the corridor. 4 super soldiers appeared, hulking figures with glowing blue eyes embedded in seamless black armor. Their visors emitted an eerie hum, and their movements were unnaturally precise. Zara's pulse spiked. She knew these were not ordinary soldiers. The technocracy's bioengineered elite. Faster, stronger, mercilessly efficient. The data in her pocket suddenly felt as heavy as a bomb. Hale raised his rifle and unleashed a burst of plasma fire. The shot struck one soldier's chest plate, leaving scorched marks but no real damage. The super soldiers advanced in perfect unison, raising their weapons. They fired with devastating accuracy, forcing Zara and Hale to scramble for better cover as the walls sizzled and buckled. "Grenade!" Hale shouted, tossing an EMP charge toward the advancing figures. The device exploded in a bright arc of electricity, sparking over their armor. One soldier twitched, its systems momentarily disrupted, but the others pressed forward without slowing. "Those suits are shielded," Zara hissed, exchanging a grim look with Hale. She drew her knife, its edge glowing with a disruptive energy field designed for close combat. The first super soldier lunged, its metal fist coming down where Zara had stood a moment before. She dodged and slashed upward, the blade finding a gap beneath its helmet. Sparks and a spray of coolant burst out, and the soldier staggered back with a distorted metallic groan. Hale's rifle barked again as he aimed for a vulnerable joint, his shot severing a leg at the knee of another attacker. The super soldier fell, but even on the ground, it reached out with mechanical tenacity, its fingers scrabbling for purchase to pull itself forward. "We need to go now," Ren screamed, backing away, his face pale as death. The third super soldier slammed into Hale, sending him skidding across the floor. Zara's vision narrowed to a sharp focus as she leaped onto its back, driving her blade into the seam at the nape of its neck. With a twist and a surge of electricity, the soldier convulsed and fell lifeless to the floor. Zara turned to see Hale struggling to keep another soldier's gun from pointing at his head. His muscles strained as he growled with effort. Zara aimed her pistol and fired 2 precise shots into the back of the soldier's head, the impact punching through weakened armor. It crumpled onto Hale, who shoved it aside and scrambled to his feet. "Time to run," he panted. They bolted down the corridor, Ren leading the way to a hatch marked with bright emergency icons. The air grew stifling as automated drones buzzed past, screeching an alarm that echoed off every metallic surface. Zara hit the emergency release, and the hatch opened, revealing a narrow tubular chute that dropped into darkness. Ren hesitated, looking back at the encroaching chaos. "Go!" Hale roared, shoving Ren in first. The scientist fell, arms flailing as the gravity lift caught him, guiding his descent. Zara was next, a split second before more super soldiers stormed into view. Hale covered their retreat, firing a few more shots before diving in after her. The chute walls blurred past as they slid down at bone-rattling speed, the sound of gunfire and shouts growing fainter. They landed hard in a dimly lit docking bay lined with abandoned service vehicles. The lift's hum stopped, replaced by the distant thud of boots on metal as more soldiers approached. Ren scrambled to his feet, pointing toward a small shuttle docked near the far wall. "That one. It's old, but I can fly it." "Let's hope you're better at piloting than staying calm," Hale muttered, casting a wary eye at the bay's main entrance. Zara nodded, gripping her weapon. "Get us out of here, Ren. We'll hold them off." The docking bay doors burst open, and more super soldiers charged through. Zara and Hale stood side by side, exchanging a silent, determined glance. Plasma fire erupted as they opened up with everything they had, covering Ren's frantic dash to the shuttle. The battle for escape began in earnest, every second a razor's edge between survival and capture. Zara and Hale moved in tandem, their training synchronizing their movements as if they shared a single mind. The super soldiers, with their gleaming visors and fluid mechanical movements, advanced with an unwavering precision that bordered on inhuman. Plasma bolts crackled through the air, their deadly glow illuminating the docking bay in strobe-like flashes. "On your left," Hale shouted, pivoting to unload a burst at an advancing super soldier. The impact hit dead center, causing it to stagger but not fall. Its blue eyes flared, targeting Hale with a raised energy weapon. Zara, noticing the immediate danger, dropped to one knee and shot at the soldier's elbow joint. The disruptor round hit true, sending the weapon clattering to the floor as the super soldier's arm spasmed. Hale took the opening and finished it with a direct shot to the head, the armored giant collapsing in a heap of metal and burnt flesh. "Ren, status." Zara called over the comms, glancing toward the shuttle. Ren was inside, furiously tapping at the controls, the small vessel's lights flickering to life. Engines warming up. 30 more seconds. Ren's voice cracked through the speakers, barely audible over the chaos. "We don't have 30 seconds, Hale muttered as 2 more super soldiers stepped through the smoke-filled entrance, weapons raised. Zara's breath came in ragged gasps as she spun around, searching for something, anything that could slow them down. Her eyes fell on a set of large suspended fuel canisters attached to the wall. "Hale, the canisters! Aim for them," she shouted, firing her last disruptor round at a control panel near the tanks. Sparks erupted as the shot connected, and the canisters began to hiss and groan with a high-pitched whine. "Cover your ears," Hale yelled, taking careful aim before pulling the trigger. The plasma bolt struck the canisters, igniting an eruption that sent a wave of searing heat through the bay. The 2 approaching super soldiers were caught in the blast, their armor blistering and cracking as they fell. The explosion bought them precious seconds but shook the bay so hard that Zara stumbled. She caught herself just as Ren's voice cracked over the comm again. "Shuttle's ready. Get in now." Hale reached her, grabbing her arm and half-dragging her to the waiting vessel. Behind them, the bay's alarms reached a shrill crescendo, and the massive bulkhead doors started to close, likely an automatic response to the explosion. More technocracy troops flooded the far end of the bay, but the fire and debris slowed their advance. "Go, go!" Zara yelled, shoving Ren back into the pilot's seat as she and Hale jumped aboard. The hatch slammed shut, and the shuttle's engines roared to life. Ren's fingers danced over the controls, his expression tight with concentration. The shuttle shuddered as it lifted off the ground, and Zara felt the drag of gravity as they shot forward. Plasma fire rattled against the exterior, but the shielding held as they careened out of the docking bay and into the chaos of the nebula beyond. Zara watched the station shrink behind them, its black, angular silhouette now scarred and smoking from the skirmish. The alarms were a distant echo, and for a moment, all she could hear was her own heartbeat thudding in her ears. Ren set the shuttle on autopilot and slumped back, the tension bleeding from his shoulders as he let out a long, shaky breath. Hale leaned against the bulkhead, catching his breath, his eyes still darting to the small viewport. "We did it," Zara whispered, more to herself than anyone else. The adrenaline ebbed, replaced by the hollow weight of what they had learned. The stolen data chip pressed uncomfortably against her chest, its contents more valuable and horrifying than anything they'd ever imagined. Ren met her gaze, a haunted look in his eyes. "We stopped them from getting to you, but what you have on that chip, it's only the beginning. They won't stop hunting us now." Zara's jaw clenched, and she exchanged a knowing look with Hale. "Let them come," she said, the resolve hardening in her voice. "The Republic needs to know the truth, and we're going to make sure they do." The shuttle sped away from the nebula, carrying them into the dark reaches of space where war still raged. But now they carried more than hope. They carried the weapon that could change the course of everything.